Hi, everybody. I am your host, Mike Downer, and thanks for joining us on From Compassion to the Conversation, brought to you by Hendersons Funeral and Cremation. Today, I am joined by Rick Ramsey. He is a licensed funeral director. How are we doing today, Rick?
Doing well. Thanks, Mike.
Perfect. Usually, you guys are used to seeing Ryan on here. We decided to go with the guy with a little more hair this time, and I'm sure he'll see this and be like, he's gonna roll his eyes and go, Mike, Mike, Mike. But today we're going to be talking about how you write a meaningful obituary. So when someone passes, this is obviously very important. It's kind of like, how do you sum up somebody's whole life in such a small amount? So what should you include in an obituary? How do you write one that truly honors your loved ones? And what are the practical steps? So let's get started with what essential information should every obituary include?
We're going to want to have, as far as decedent's date of birth, date of death, and then we're going to want to list siblings. Now, it's completely up to the family as far as how far out we want to go. We may want to just list children, spouses, and grandchildren, where some families, tight knit families, may want to go a little bit further out where, hey, we've got cousins in there, we've got aunts and uncles, their names in there, the cities that they live in, nieces and nephews. It's completely dependent upon families' wishes and how far out they want to go with relatives.
Yeah, how much of that family tree and and it makes perfect sense because I know families that probably wouldn't even want their brothers or sisters listed. It's just that's their family dynamic. And I also know, as you and everybody else probably knows, I know people that would want their great great grandchildren listed as well as every cousin that they've ever had, and maybe even their cousins' kids because they are that close.
No, and
So
Mike, I think it's important to remember the obituary itself is going to go on the service folders, and it ends up being really an historical record. I can't tell you how many times I've sat across a family at an arrangement table, and they're trying to figure out, Aunt Mabel's name as far as who she was related to here, and someone pulls out a service folder from a funeral 2 years ago, and they've got all that information in front of them.
that's smart thinking. Hey, and if we want to go back to some of our previous conversations, if you pre-plan that funeral, then you'd have to go through that at the time, and it's not quite so stressful.
I like how you
Anyway,
throw that in there.
different topic, different topic. But anyway, I did like to slide that in there. So now your loved one has passed. You've got to write that obituary. How should you start an obituary in a way that feels right for your loved one?
Well, I think it's important to, as far as, again, you're going to have the date of birth, the date of death, or you're going to probably going to add where they passed. You're going to have their age, where they were living at the time, and then you're going to go into where they were born, their mom and dad, whether or not they were preceded in death. And you're going to want to focus the next couple of paragraphs on hobbies, maybe on where they worked, how long they retired, what they enjoyed doing, club affiliations, church affiliations, just a snapshot of their overall life to give everyone the opportunity as far as, hey, we haven't seen, let's say, Joe Smith for the last 2 or 3 years. It'd be nice to know, where his children are at, not only where his children are at, but their spouses and everyone that's still with us as far as family members.
Perfect. So I know you were going over because you gave a pretty big laundry list of things that you want to include. So, in your opinion, Rick, how do you tell someone's life story in just a few meaningful paragraphs? I mean, how do you sort out all that information? Because you gave a pretty big laundry list. How do you condense that down and make it meaningful for the person who's passed? In your
So,
professional opinion.
not all of us are Ernest Hemingway, that's for sure. So we actually will email, or if you're in here making at need arrangements, we'll give you a form that actually guides you through that process. It'll have, church affiliations. How long was your loved one here in Des Moines? What year did they retire? And you can fill that out, and then you can decide for yourself, is this information I want to include in the obituary, or this information that I don't really feel is that important for everyone to read.
Very good. So when we were talking about loved ones, and I know that being listed is important to some families, but I'm sure there's a process to it. Could you kind of walk us through the process of how you list surviving family members, predeceased loved ones, and special relationships? What's
Well,
kind of the formula on that one?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, as you mentioned, it is really important. And let's say that you're going down the list and you're mentioning cousins and you're including aunts and uncles, and someone gets left off. Well, I tell you what, that can really hurt somebody's feelings. So what we do is we have a form that we start with the next of kin being spouse, and then we go to children, and then we go to grandchildren. And then if families would like to extend that out to aunts and uncles and nephews and grandma and grandpa, then we give them that option to include them, and it's all right there, black and white, so nobody gets left out. And we certainly encourage family members to have other family members with them, just to make sure spelling is correct and that nobody's forgotten.
Yeah, because that could, I mean, I could see where that could potentially have a ripple effect on the entire family for quite some time.
And one practice that we implement, as far as before we post that obituary online for Hendersons, we send it back to the family to proofread. Uh, Feelings can get hurt not only leaving someone out, but also misspelling someone's name.
Yeah, that's a big one. That is huge. So when it comes to the service, what service details should you include in an obituary?
You certainly want to go with visitation. Some families will choose to have the visitation the evening before the funeral, maybe say 4 to 8 o'clock, to give people a chance to come in and say goodbye and pay their last respects. While other families will have a visitation an hour, maybe 2 hours before the funeral service, the day of the funeral service. So you're going to want to list the date and the time of the funeral service, and you're also going to want to list the location of the funeral service.
Very good. Um, so now that a family has filled out your form with your expertise, help write this beautiful obituary, and it's just everybody's just gleaming. Where should families publish and share the obituary?
I think they can, as far as Henderson's is going to publish it on our website so that
Okay,
everyone's going to know, hey, Henderson's are handling the service. If you've got questions, maybe it's a flower questions. Can we send flowers to the church, or do we need to send them to the funeral home? So we're going to publish that obituary on Henderson's website. As far as family members, they may want to put it in a newspaper. The biggest challenge putting an obituary in a newspaper is, first off, it's going to be a little bit pricey. Here in Des Moines, the register charges of a good amount to post an obituary. And then the challenge you're going to have in smaller rural areas is not every newspaper in a small town comes out every day. It may only come out once a week. So if you're trying to publish that obituary in a newspaper that comes out once a week, there's a pretty good chance the funeral service is going to already have been conducted before the paper is published. So putting it online here at Henderson's is going to ensure that it reaches everybody. And those are just a couple of challenges you may run into as far as publishing in a newspaper.
yeah, you bet. And I completely understand that. And then at that point, I'm sure you provide them with the same electronic obituary that you use on yours, so that if they did want to post it on Facebook, Instagram, any of those social media platforms, to let family and friends know.
Yeah, we certainly put that. Not only do we post the obit there, but our funeral services here at Hendersons are also live streamed as far as the funeral service itself on Facebook.
Okay, that's a great option to have too, especially for people who are not physically able to commute, can't afford to commute, can't take the time off to commute. That's a really huge benefit.
Oh, I agree. Not everybody has the opportunity to attend a funeral service in person, but being able to sit and watch it live streamed is just it's a great opportunity that a lot of family and friends take advantage of.
I love that option. So what are the most common mistakes families make when writing an obituary?
We've discussed two of them, and the first one is someone accidentally gets left out simply for the fact that you're at need and you're not always going to be thinking straight simply because you're under a lot of stress. The second mistake a lot of family members accidentally make is the misspelling of a name, and it seems like such a small mistake, but boy, I got to tell you, it really can hurt somebody's feelings. And the same goes for spouses. Maybe not including a spouse or including a spouse even though they've been separated for a number of years.
So we've gone over some of these things, but we're going to wind this up. You can kind of give us, so since we've kind of piecemealed this down, we're going to kind of wrap this all up, so you can kind of walk us through the entire process, um, just to give our listeners a little bit of peace of mind. How does Henderson's help families write a meaningful and accurate obituary?
Well, we're going to sit down in person with you. We're going to go over all the information that we feel should be on the obituary. Now, you may want to go a little bit further out as far as that family tree and who's included in the obit, or you may want to pare that down to where, you know what, we weren't a tight knit family, and we've got a couple of children, and that's really who we feel is important to list in the obituary. And then we're also going to go step by step as far as hobbies, as far as affiliations, church. What was important to the person that passed away? Their, you know, what they did as far as their career, their retirement, and what meant a lot to them. I don't know how many times we've had families share. Dad really enjoyed spending all of his time with his grandchildren. Just letting the folks know who have maybe haven't seen Dad for a while what he was up to, and just a snapshot of his entire life.
No, that's great. So you make sure that you get what's important to the person in there, and you kind of help sort it out so that you're not writing a whole biography on them,
No,
but
I
yet
agree.
it's sick, and I love the fact that you guys could have some expert guidance. When my kids go, oh, we like to go to the casino a lot, and you're like, well, maybe we can leave that one out. Everybody already knows Mike goes to the casino. So I always got to throw a little humor in on these. Rick, I appreciate everything you guys do. I appreciate the compassion and care that you give to Iowa families, and Midwest families, and you guys always do a really good job. Thanks for letting us, know on the steps of what to and not to do on obituaries. And I look forward to our next talk.
No, thank you, Mike. And again, if anybody should ever, as far as on the pre-need side of it, want to sit down and maybe get a start on as far as writing obit or what we should include, or even trying to run down, hey, relatives, more than happy to sit down with somebody and just go over this is what should be included in the obituary.
Awesome. I love our conversations, and you know what? On the next one, I think I'm going to have you do the next one too, and maybe we'll let Ryan back in on these someday. You and
That
me are just
sounds
having too
good.
much fun.
I sure enjoy speaking with you, Mike. And again, to anyone out there listening, if it when it comes to the funeral service, whether or not you've been affiliated with us in the past or not, please feel free to stop by or pick up a telephone, here to answer questions,
Perfect.
however we can help.
Give these guys a call. I look forward to our next conversation. Again, whether Ryan ever gets back on here and you and I will discuss that. All
That sounds good.
right, take care.